Hello, everyone. Let's get started. We have Viscel Moore as our guest. Today's episode is sponsored by Helen Junda Coaching. Helen Junda is a certified executive career and life coach with her ACC issued by ICF, a graduate of Hofstra University, BS in Accounting and Business Management, an accomplished and talented businesswoman. She is also a strategist, leader, and coach. If you're a business owner or CEO and feel isolated, HJ Consulting and Coaching leads a Vistage peer advisory group to bring like-minded leaders together to share insights, navigate challenges, and identify solutions that will propel their business forward. Through monthly group meetings, one-to-one coaching, and speaker sessions, HJ Coaching helps leaders uncover their true selves, allowing them to grow and develop professionally and personally. Where there is fear, there is growth. If you're a business owner looking or a CEO looking to become a better leader and achieve better results in your personal and professional life, book a meeting to learn more about being a member of her Vistage peer advisory group. And the calendar is in the link. If you're interested in becoming a show sponsor, please email info@n18 for the rates and to learn more. Now for our guest. Our guest today is Viscel C. Moore. She was appointed to the town of Babylon by Supervisor Schaffer as the Director of Beautification and Community Outreach. Viscel works with the local chambers and county governments, as well as the IDA, or Industrial Development Agency, to improve downtowns via downtown revitalization grants, making them attractive to businesses and developers. In 2021, the town of Babylon received funding from the American Rescue Plan Act in response to COVID-19 pandemic. Viscel was given the additional title and responsibility by Supervisor Schaffer as the Director of COVID Economic Recovery. Viscel worked to create the direct support program out of the ARPA funding received to help local small businesses, nonprofits, and veteran organizations. Those negatively impacted by the COVID pandemic shutdown were able to achieve grants of up to $49,000, $49,500 actually. To date, close to $6 million has been awarded, helping the local economy get back on track. So let's welcome our guest, Viscel Moore. Hi, Viscel.
How are you?
Welcome. So,
Thank you.
that was a very intense bio.
Yeah.
A lot going on there. But tell
Yes.
us, like in summary, if you're a small business, how do you engage and what are you doing to help support them in your role?
Well, as the Director of Beautification, which was my first title, I work with many chambers of commerce, which is comprised of many small businesses and some large too, but mostly small businesses of that area. And I work with them to help beautify the local downtowns and areas so that they would be more attractive, not only to businesses, but also to customers. And of course, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask why you have to explain. Why does beautification even matter?
Well, it kind of goes back to the broken windows theory, which was put forth by sociologists Wilson and Helsing, I believe their last name was. And it goes to the fact that if an area looks dilapidated and run down, no one wants to go there and the community won't care. And you remember from that movie, if you build it, they will come. So this is kind of what transformed New York City even when Mayor Rudy Giuliani was in office. He fixed up Times Square and businesses came and it became a tourist attraction in the positive sense. Island and our suburbs and our downtowns where if we fix up an area, if an area looks nice, clean, flowers, even hanging baskets, representation of the community itself, then people will want to come there, shop there, and even, bring their businesses there.
Interesting. And so, like, if you're a small business owner and they're trying to engage with you, whether it's because they want to get garbage pails or a sidewalk repaired or flowers planted, what are some of the steps that business owners take to engage with your office?
They definitely call the town of Babylon directly. Some of them have met me during my speaking engagements at local civics and chambers of commerce meetings. And so I give out my business cards and they will call me, especially in the spring. You'd be surprised how many people get upset if they don't have a hanging basket on our decorative lampposts outside of their business. As one small accountant advised me, it makes people feel welcome. And so that's why they call me. And then I work very closely with our Department of Public Works to get these things done because I'm not actually going out hanging up the baskets myself. So it's a partnership, it's a team within the town of Babylon.
Oh, interesting. So tell us more about the COVID recovery grant and the money that was allocated. How did you know who to even award the funds to?
Mhm. So, March 11th, 2021, President Joe Biden signed into law the American Rescue Plan Act, and monies were sent directly to municipalities, whether it's state, county, local, depending on the size. In our case, for the town of Babylon, we received the money directly rather than having to wait for the state, and we received over $13 million. Supervisor Schaffer and the town board decided, let's put the money back into the community, which is really the goal of ARPA, to take that money and not only help to get the country back on its feet, but also address some of the inequities in our education, in our financial systems, in our health systems. And so, what Supervisor Schaffer wanted to do was funnel that money back into the community. I worked with the team. We created the direct support program. And then we had to disseminate that information to make sure that the community found out about it. As you read, this program was to help small businesses, nonprofit organizations, and veterans organizations, usually in the form of a VFW or a lodge, American Legion, Post Lodge, because a lot of those businesses had to shut down and therefore were negatively impacted economically, especially some of the nonprofits and VFWs that most of their funding comes from donations and fundraising. And if their facility is closed, they can't raise the funds. So we did reach out to our local chambers within the town of Babylon. We had several press conferences. It was written about in Newsday, which is the big newspaper here on Long Island, and some boots to the ground, really knocking on doors just to get the word out to our small businesses and into the community.
Wow, you said some very interesting things there, especially around getting involved with your local chamber of commerce. So, as a town leader, are you saying that the relationship with the chamber of commerce is important, or what do you think the role is for small businesses to participate with their chambers?
I think it's critical. One, in this day and age, even though it's the information age, everyone is not reading the newspaper like they used to. So, how are people getting their information? And for small businesses, you typically are talking about, now, there is a specific definition of small businesses: 100 employees or less, or 500 employees or less. But typically, small businesses in these areas, you really have maybe 10 employees, sometimes less. If you think about your local establishment, your dry cleaners that you go to, your favorite fast food restaurants, such as the Chinese takeout, or and not the big chains, but your pizza takeout place. If you think about those places, you're not talking about 100 employees, and they're busy running their businesses. However, to get the information to them, I think it's vital that they join their local chamber of commerce, which can serve as a funnel of information. The chambers of commerces have direct relationships with the elected officials, and the elected officials come and speak at these meetings, and they talk about the programs that are available. And then, of course, that's how some of these small businesses found out about this grant.
Oh, interesting. And then when you think about readiness, like a lot of small businesses are operating and they're not using much technology. How were
Right.
you able to validate or verify like this company should get this grant? What kind of paperwork or what kind of things or processes I love some process. I love process and
Yes.
operation. So how does how does a small business prepare or make sure that they're ready for these opportunities when they're presented?
So we did have criteria. One, let me just take a step back. Going back to the civic engagement or being part of the chambers of commerce, you establish relationships with some of these businesses so you can kind of validate or legitimize this particular entity that is applying. I was not the sole decider. We had a review committee of 7 people. We kept it as an odd number. And we also had a special counsel as part of our team as well. And when the applications were coming in, we were able to vet them because chances were there was somebody on that review committee, including myself, that may know the owner, may have gone to that establishment. So we knew that the entity exists. Of course, you can always look up things on the internet, but knowing, having that personal relationship from them being a part of that civic group or chamber definitely helps validate them. But then to award them the amount of money that they were asking for, we did have criteria. One, we wanted to see what your economic standing or financial standing was of the business in 2019. And then, of course, looking at it compared to 2020. So if you were a small business, we may have asked for you to submit your 1120 IRS tax form to show the negative impact that the shutdown had on your business. If you're a nonprofit, we may have asked you to submit a 990 form. Same thing with the veterans organizations such as the VFWs, or maybe having a CPA create a profit and loss statement that they would attest to as a CPA. And then we, of course, looked at what do you plan on doing with the funds? I used to joke, you cannot book a ticket on the Blue Origin or SpaceX. You have to put the money back into the business. And, and then, of course, we wanted to know, this was critical. Are you an MWBE? You didn't have to be certified for this particular grant. I know some grants you did have to be, but this particular grant, we just wanted to know if you were a minority, a woman, business entrepreneur. If you are a nonprofit, if you are a veterans organization, or if your business was veteran owned. And then lastly, are you located? Is your business located in an economically distressed area as deemed by the census? So those 5 criteria really is how we decided on whether or not an organization would be awarded the grant. Obviously, there were some extenuating circumstances with some businesses where they may not have been woman owned or minority owned. They may not have been located in an economically distressed area, but perhaps they had the receipts to show, listen, we had a fire. And then we were able to make some exceptions on their part.
Wow. And so if you were to tell me like a success story, what does that look like?
Mm. The good thing is we had many successes. So as you mentioned, we had to date awarded almost $6 million. We set about allotting 3 million for this round of funding, and in hopes that we would do it again in 2022, this year, when we received the second round of ARPA funding. But the response to this need for this grant was so overwhelming that Supervisor Schaffer and the town board decided, let's increase that to 6 million. Let's do this all in one fell swoop rather than make those businesses wait and continue to suffer and struggle. So we had some businesses where Mr. Aledo, who was a veteran of the Korean War, almost 90 years old, struggling to hold on to a business that he built. And it was a restaurant. And God bless him, he was still in the kitchen cooking, but he had a fire. And he was not located in an economically distressed area. However, his business was veteran owned, but we were able to help him tremendously because of this grant. He really was about to close his doors. And as his daughter expressed to us, this would literally kill him. And I'm happy to say that we were able to give him his full ask, and his business is still operating.
Oh, that's excellent. That's excellent to
Yes.
hear. And so, like,
Mhm.
as you think about the future, what does success look like?
Mm. Well, one of the things that I hope to be able to do is to have more in reach into our minority community. As I mentioned, the American Rescue Plan Act sought to address some of those inequities. I know there's been some hesitancy on the part of some of those businesses where they fear government. There's somewhat of a distrust, and maybe that ties into the politics of the day. But I'd like to see them reach out a little bit more because, we did our due diligence, literally, myself, even going to knock on some of those doors to get them to apply. And some of them express, concerns as to why they did not want to apply. So I hope that they see, based on the success, and we've been sharing this on our Town of Babylon Facebook page, the successes that we've had, showing them that, yes, because people ask me all the time, are you guys really giving out this money? And it's not a loan. And yes, we are. And so I hope that this next round of funding that we receive from the federal government, and we will once again roll out this program, that we do have more from that community applying.
So there's this theory that if it's too good to be true, then it might be trouble.
Yes, this is true. This is
Okay.
true. I mean, I'm not, what I would say to people is that, you do have to demonstrate a loss or show us something. I can't just give you the money. We we have a higher authority to report to as well. But there's no doubt about it that, aside, in addition to the health issues and the deaths that occurred due to COVID, there was definitely a negative economic impact.
And what is your office doing anything to help support business resilience? So really helping businesses understand like what their sustainability is post grant.
Yeah, so we do have programs. We have Councilman Anthony Mineta, who chairs our small business committee, and he reaches out directly to small businesses. He holds webinars and seminars that provide, information to small businesses. But again, a lot of times these things are being done, especially in the age of COVID, through the chamber meetings or the civic meetings. So again, there's another reason why small businesses should join that. It's really the intersection of the community and government.
Interesting. And I see there's a question that came in about reporting requirements. So you have a CPA on the line asking, what are the reporting requirements on the government side back to, or the city side or the town side back to the government, as well as the business that's receiving the grant?
So for the businesses, their CPA, yes, is doing the reporting for them, acknowledging that they received this grant. It's almost similar to some of the small business administration loans they may have received. However, this is not a loan. They don't have to pay it back. We do have clawbacks in the conditional letter that they must sign to receive this money, should they not do with the funds as they proposed. However, we're not asking for them to give the money back. There's nothing that we have to forgive. From the town's perspective, we do have to report our spending of the American Rescue Plan funds, not just with the direct support program, but there are some capital improvement projects that we're also undertaking under the guidelines of ARPA, and we have to report back to the federal government. In fact, I've done that already, and we will be doing that again. I've done it twice already. We will be doing it again at the end of April to the U.S. Treasury, showing them what we've done with the money thus far.
Interesting. I mean, I want to ask a tax question, but I think I'll hold it because my question is, does the business pay tax on the grant?
Well, there's been conflicting information because I know that this has been debated in Congress. And so what I do tell the businesses is to refer to their CPA, their accountant. Now, we do issue a 1099 to them because they're not on the payroll. So because we are a municipality, when we pay a business or pay one of our vendors or give money, we do have to issue a 1099 because they're not on the payroll. But I would refer them to their CPA because these things change, daily.
Interesting. And so one of the things I also want to ask about is if people are not as fortunate to be in the town of Babylon and under the guise of and the premises of your organization and your office, what should they be looking for in their local civic areas, or like with their local politicians or offices?
I still think that they should join the Chamber of Commerce because this is not the only grant program in town. However, we were one of the first local municipalities to do so, and because of that, I did receive a lot of calls. When people saw it on the news or in Newsday, which is the big newspaper out here on Long Island, to go to their township and ask, "Hey, are you having this program?" The New York State had a program, the Emergency Renters Assistance Plan, where they were helping renters. There was a stay on the evictions, and those things have been lifted, but they were helping renters who may have lost their jobs. So different municipalities who received money, and the majority of them did. I will say some of the small villages, they did not receive a large amount of money. Their amount of money may have been nominal, minimal. So what we've done is we included those villages in the town of Babylon under our program. We did not exclude them. And I encourage the other local municipalities to do the same. I know Supervisor Schaffer has had meetings with other supervisors of different townships, and I've spoken to them as well about our program. So hopefully, with the second round of funding that will be coming from the federal government, some of those local municipalities will follow suit and create their own programs.
Interesting. And so there's a question in coming in the chat. How can we help get the word out to other small businesses in the community that have not taken advantage of the or benefited from this opportunity?
They could certainly, especially if you're in the town of Babylon, we expect to receive our second round of funding from the American Rescue Plan Act sometime in June. So probably by July, we will once again open up the application process. They can go to the Town of Babylon Facebook page, and once you like it, then you'll be notified of it. Also, again, I would encourage them to become members of, if not the Chamber of Commerce, some of their local civic groups, because I go to those groups and speak about those things as well, especially our elected officials. They go into the same thing. So I would encourage them to have more of a civic engagement if they have not already, so that they can find out not just about this program, but other programs that may come down the pipe.
And just like as we talk about the technology divide, how is your office bridging the gap where some people are not leveraging technology? Like you might still have an AOL email address, or you might not even have an email address. Some of those businesses have been built from the ground up and not necessarily using technology. So how's
Sure.
your office, and how does anyone, approach that?
Sure. So we recognize that some businesses, there is that technology divide. I'm always impressed with the people that do know how to use email and scanning documents, and I understand those that don't. So we actually set up a Dropbox so that if you did not, and I was the only person with the key, so if you were not able to email or scan your documents, your application, you could come directly to Town Hall. You can mail it to us. You could put it to our attention or to the direct support program. It would come directly to me. Or you could come to Town Hall, and we had a Dropbox. It's not there at this time, but we had a Dropbox right in the main vestibule that you could put your application in.
Oh,
So um, I know email and scanning can be even intimidating to some mom and pop businesses.
interesting. And for everyone listening, when she says Dropbox, she does not mean the technology tool that allows you to share files. She means like a
Right.
physical box to drop this
Right,
in.
not the application.
Right, right. Like
The
let's just be
physical
clear.
box, yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
So, one other thing I wanted to hear more about is when we're looking at small businesses and giving them advice of ways to be successful in engaging with their civic organizations and their local politicians and their local chambers of commerce and try to still run their business.
Yes.
How are you advising people to do all of these things and still be able to make like pizza and donuts and
Well, the good thing is that, those meetings are not every week. They're usually once a month, and there's no rule that says you have to be at the meeting each month, but most of those organizations do email their members. So if you can't make the meeting, maybe you'll get an email. Maybe there's a friend that you have in the chamber or the civic group who may tell you about what happened at last night's meetings. But again, this establishes a relationship between the elected officials and your business. And then in this case, like I said, we were able to validate some of these businesses because I know from prior speaking engagements and even some of our elected officials, they have relationships with some of these businesses. So even if you don't go to every single meeting, become a member, and you'll be notified of various programs such as this. You will establish relationships with other members. I know some chambers and some civics, they may host these meetings. They may take turns at different businesses. So they may have the meeting at one Italian restaurant or one Caribbean restaurant. And that, also brings customers to your businesses. People know about it. People get to know you. So it comes full circle.
So these meetings are in person, not virtual?
Some of them are virtual because of COVID. Actually, a lot of them have been virtual due to COVID. But as things are opening up, they're returning back to that in-person meeting. There's still something to be said about being in person.
Okay, thank you. And like our sponsor today was HJ Coaching, and she has a Vistage group. Her name is Helen Junda. She has a Vistage group where she works with business leaders and brings them together to help them solve problems. Really focusing on allowing them to have like these safe spaces around business growth that are cross-functional in need. So, what are some of the other things that people should be looking for from a support perspective to grow and scale their businesses?
Well, just as you said, the services, because when I approached these businesses after sending applications to me, some of them did not send in the required documentation, and they didn't have someone. They may have had maybe a family member who did their taxes, or maybe they didn't do their taxes at all. And so I encouraged them to get help, to get guidance, and some of them want to grow. Some of them had to let go of employees seeking out help, such as the person who is sponsoring this episode, would only help their business grow and benefit.
Interesting. And then on a final note, because I have a passion about infrastructure and infrastructure projects and the beautification and all of these things,
Yes.
um, is there a favorite beautification project that you want to tell us about that happened within under your reign?
I have several of them. One that is near and dear to my heart is I was able to help a friend of mine whose wife became a doctor. She wanted to open up a practice in the community that she grew up in, and she is a woman of color, and there were no doctors in this community. So that's something that was definitely a personal achievement of mine. It was a space that was unoccupied, boarded up, and we were able to get her in there. Her office is beautiful. People are telling me they love going there. We also have the Hometown Heroes Banner program where we are recognizing veterans and active military personnel by putting their picture on our decorative lampposts throughout all of our downtowns. And one of my big projects was working with a local civic group, not a chamber, but a civic group, who opened up a farmer's market during the first summer of COVID because businesses were shut down. But because it was an open air market, New York State allowed us to have a permit to have this farmer's market. And so vendors were able to bring their wares to this farmer's market, and people felt comfortable shopping. There was a time that people were fearful of going into stores. But here, of course, you still had to wear your mask, but it was outdoors and you were able to social distance, and vendors were able to earn money, and people were able to shop comfortably. So I would say those are my top three.
Okay, thank you. And we're actually at 10:30, but are there
Okay.
any last words of wisdom that you want to give business owners? That's one. And then two, um, what are you looking forward to in the year of 2022?
Well, definitely, I would say for those businesses and groups, get involved. I can't stress enough on every level, from your schools to your communities to the chambers to your civic organizations. That's number one. Number two, I'm looking forward to continuing to do the work to really get further in reach into our communities, especially those communities that ARPA really set out to help. And it's not that it's excluding one group, it's including more of those other groups.
Okay. And what are you looking forward to for 2022?
Further in reach, getting into those communities to get them to apply, to get a piece of the pie. The money is there, and we want to be able to help. And Supervisor Schaffer and the town board for Babylon is very committed to doing so.
Awesome. Well, thank you for joining us. And thank you, everyone, for listening in and for your questions. And this is Any Given Monday.
Thank you.